Hi, everybody. I am Zaina Rose. I am here with Erin Miller, your Ace Your Interview founder, creator, and your job interview coach. Hi, Erin. How's it going?
Good. Hey, Zena. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining.
We hope you're doing well. I work with Erin in the Ace Your Interview program, and today we are going to give you some really good information, some myths and tips to think about. And Erin's got one thing in particular she wants you to know that may shock you about the job interview process. Okay, let's dive right into it. Erin, what are some of the things that they matter, but people might think they matter the most, and maybe they don't?
Great question. And I just want to start out by saying I am recovering from bronchitis, so I'm sorry if I have a little bit of a scratchy voice. Yeah, there's a lot of assumptions around what people think is important regarding an interview. Some things that I hear a lot are that they feel like the most qualified person gets the job. That is the number one thing that I hear over and over. That's not necessarily true. A lot of times what it comes down to is the fact that most people, it's think about it this way. When an interviewer is interviewing, they're seeing hundreds of candidates, and it's almost like talking heads coming into a room, right? The thing that really triggers a person to make a decision about hiring somebody is not necessarily the qualifications, but it's the passion and the drive that comes with that person. So that is always something that people have that misconception of, is that the most qualified person gets a job. Not the case usually. Another misconception is that the interviewer is going to ask the right questions to showcase, your strengths and all your qualifications. Not the case. A lot of times, the interviewer is not prepared. There occasionally can be personnel change last minute. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that the person has really looked at your resume. It doesn't mean that the person knows anything about you other than maybe a 2-minute glance over of your resume before you come in the door. And they might not even be 100% aware of the job, exactly everything that the job entails. They might not be the overseeing manager. So that's another misconception that people have, is that they're going to get the right questions and they're going to have somebody who's, the direct line of point person for that particular job. And I guess that goes hand in hand with the third myth, which is that they're prepared. The interviewer is always prepared. Like I said, a lot of times it can be, that interviewer could be sick. They might have to have their manager step in for the day, or a manager from a different division step in to do the interview. Does not necessarily mean that they are
Don't, yeah, and don't we find that sometimes it is not a matter, even like that stuff happens a lot, but sometimes it's not that there was a last minute switch. It's just that that interviewer has a style in which they maybe believe they don't need to prepare.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And that it's the truth. I mean, everybody interviews differently. Everybody does the interviewing differently, right? It comes down to personal style. So those are just a few things to keep in mind, that, don't think that you're walking into something and everything is, been thought out and well prepared and, waiting for you to come in and make this grand debut. So
It's interesting because it's so it should be a win-win, right, for the interviewee and the interviewer, but it's so much the case that the burden is on the interviewee, of course, to position themselves, to prove themselves, to build rapport with the interviewer.
mhm.
And sometimes that's hard work. Sometimes it's not easy, depending on the personality types.
100%. I mean, there is a huge level of emotional intelligence that goes into interviewing. And it really is being able to read the other person. But you know what I find to be the most helpful thing with that is, one of the most important things you can do on an interview is ask a lot of questions. People love to talk about themselves, and that's just the way it is, not just in interviews, but in life, right? People love to talk about themselves. So if you find that you can't read an interviewer, the best thing to do is ask them about how they got into their current role, what they love most about the company, what they love about the corporate culture, their progression into management, because then you can get a real idea as to what how they articulate. Are they passion driven? Are they analytical, right brain or left brain? And also you can get a feel as to, if you know what makes them tick, you know how to speak to them differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great way, especially if there's some pregnant pauses where you kind of feel like you have dead air space. Questions directed towards the interviewer are the best way to handle an interview, period.
Yeah, and it's a nice way to show them how you converse and how you, in essence, socialize a little bit as well, especially if the role that you're going to interview for has client-facing parts to it.
100, absolutely. And also keep in mind this, everybody feels like they have to come into an interview and they have to be 100% polished and, spot on. The reality is this is a two-way street, right? I mean, you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you, because essentially you're going to be spending upwards of 40 plus hours a week with this person. So they need to see how you are, just regular you, and vice versa. So that casual conversation, it matters because you're going to be spending a lot of time with this person. And a lot of people, they forget that, but sometimes small talk, it's necessary. So.
Yeah. Well, and I have a question for you about resumes, because I know we get a lot of the students who take the ACER interview mini course. A lot of them are concerned about their resumes, and that's not what that course is focused on.
Right.
And I know you have a particular view. Of course, resumes matter; they get you in the door. And what are some of the things that we're finding? Like, I know we're finding some resumes are too long. And maybe not clarifying enough about who the person is. But there's this idea like, yes, everything you've done matters, but sometimes there are, a set of things that you focus on that will highlight you in a certain way for a particular type of job.
Okay, so resumes is a hot button for me, as you know, Zane. And a lot of people get very wrapped around the axle with resumes. Let me just break it down for you. The average resume gets looked at about 90 seconds. That's it. So, and you're in a pile. The way that most companies operate is that they're taking your cover letter and they're taking your resume, and they have specific computer search words. And if the computer can't pinpoint those search words in your resume or cover letter, you're at the bottom of the pile. A lot of people don't know that. So really, you could write the most amazing thing on the planet, and if you don't have those keywords, nobody cares. No one's going to read it, and that's the sad truth. The reality is that when it comes down to resumes, I would heavily suggest that you invest in some type of book or program. Just basic, doesn't have to be huge. I have this book right here, which I just bought. I saw it in an airport, and I just, it's part of my craft, so I picked it up, and it's really great. And it just gives some examples as to for each level of, whether you're right out of school or whether you're an executive or a junior executive, how to write your resume appropriately. I can tell you less is more, very succinct. Obviously, when you're just starting out, you need to highlight, your education and the skills that you bring. But as you get more progressed in your career, that's not necessary. All you need to focus on is the actual results that you've brought, the achievements and the results for the company that you have had over the span of your career, because that's what they want to see. They don't care. They want to see the results. So making it succinct, making it just very matter of fact. Resume should never be more than 2 pages. It really shouldn't, because you need to save that for the face-to-face. Now, that being said, the cover letter is a great space to tell A, that you want the job, and B, that you are actually the perfect fit for this job based on the job description. So it's really aligning yourself. And another little tip, if you really read that job description, I guarantee you the keywords that they're looking for are in the job description. So if you really take a look at that and then incorporate how you're the perfect fit using their own language, you're probably setting yourself up for success. And more importantly than that, I oftentimes find that if you really love the company and you're really trying to get in, bust your butt, get on LinkedIn, find other people that work for that company. Ask them about their experience. Ask them if they have a way to recommend people. Get involved with your network. I have also advised people to go ahead and contact HR, introduce themselves, tell them how excited you are. I mean, it's a little obnoxious, I get it, but you know what? The squeaky wheel gets the oil. So, and it helps. It really does help. The more aggressive, the better. Because even though right now we're in an economy that is doing great and our unemployment is very low right now, the market is still saturated because there's great jobs to be had out there. So you really have to distinguish yourself, and it's really about being aggressive, and it's really about thinking outside the box, really and truly. So thank you for that question, because I want to figure out people.
Well, and I just want to highlight something you said too. So there's the tone you take. So the being aggressive is what we have to do, right? To get noticed in the saturated job market. But if you use, if you're on a call with HR, if you've gotten a phone appointment, and the tone of voice that you use matters so much. So it should be, you should present yourself as your authentic self by phone. That's your first impression to that company, potentially. Amen. After the email. Okay. So as long as you present yourself with authenticity, like you're who you really are, and you're also make sure that you make it clear you're being respectful of their time, but the forward thinking and the initiative you're taking by contacting them, trying to get information, is impressive to a lot of companies. And of course, like, there are different company cultures, and you could be watching this in part of the world where that's maybe the etiquette's not acceptable in that way, but take that advice. And if you're in another part of the world, or if they don't have an HR department, take that advice and modify it for the situation that you're in. So it might be that you contact someone else in the company, or somebody who knows that person who can afford you an introduction. So just get creative with it.
Absolutely. And I mean, like I said, we live in a time where you can get a hold of pretty much anybody on socials. So especially LinkedIn. So if, there's no harm in reaching out to people and sending a brief like, hey, I just applied for this job. I'm very excited. Just a little introduction. They always say the more you're visible, the higher your chances.
I have something to add. That's my hot button in this situation. Yeah. So this is my opinion, but as a communications consultant and personal branding expert, and I've had a lot of experience with this myself and with people that I have coached and consulted, when you're asking for someone's help or their advice, a lot of people will use the phrase, "Can I pick your brain?" And that's my hot button, because what does that sound like? That sounds like, "Can I just take from you, please?"
Right.
Or not even please. "Can I just take from you?" Right? So when you're asking for something from someone, phrase it around, "May I have a few minutes to get advice from you about X?"
Love it.
And what I have found is, I'm a networking expert and a communication, all that stuff. So this is something that comes up a lot with people. And if you phrase it around advice and you are specific about what you're asking for, then people will not perceive it as a waste of time.
Right.
Have the information to decide whether it's up to them ultimately, whether they want to give you that time or not. And I have found that when people appear specific, organized, and polite, whether it's in a text or a LinkedIn message or an Instagram DM or an email, no matter how you're asking, when you are concise, polite, specific, people generally want to help and say yes, because don't forget, they want to give back. Most people are good people, and they received advice and a hand up along the way, right? 100%. Yeah. And if they're in a company that you're asking, if they're inside the company, they have a direct interest in that company gaining a team member like you, who has initiative, who has etiquette, who has, a sense of themselves and is a good communicator.
You're so right. And there's so many times where that's happened to me, and I've not had the time or anything, but I've gotten sucked into it because I really like the person.
Exactly. And if they had said, "Hi, can I pick your brain about," versus, Hi, Ms. Miller, or hi, Erin. I found out about you and I'm really interested in working for your company. And I'd love if you have 10 spare minutes anytime in the next week. May I speak to you? I have two questions about your company culture
Yeah.
or how best to present my, like, you might even say, I've been preparing for my interview and I have a question about how best to present myself based on all of my experience. Like you could even, I mean, this is more your, whether someone should say that or not, but remember that we're talking right now about something informal.
Right.
I'm just trying to connect to that person. So that might speak to that person and it might not. So another thing is to try to perceive, is that person more conservative in that way?
So
Or,
I think,
or are they
yeah.
more relaxed? I don't know.
Well, I think you actually hit the nail on the head about the entire purpose of this call. Actually, this was something you just said. The most important, well, it's two-part answer, but the most important thing to do on an interview that shocks most people, but it doesn't because it's counterintuitive. It's two-part, and you just hit it. It's
So is
connection.
this our number one myth?
This is our number
Okay,
one.
okay, everybody. This is
This is our number one strategy.
This is what you showed up for. This is the number one. There are many that are very important. This is the number one thing we wanted to make sure you walk away with today.
Yeah. So it's two-part answer, but it's what you said, Zaina. Number one is connection, okay? Because think about it. I know I used this analogy before, but an interviewer, they're in a room all day long, and it's like talking heads coming in and out. There's 12, 13 people coming in and out. It's really that connection. It's who's going to move them, because people make buying decisions. They make decisions, any decision, usually based on an emotional pull. Okay. So connection is everything. And I'll dive into that in a minute. And the other part of it is passion. So when you're going for a job, what are you super passionate about? Is it the product? Is it the service that, maybe it's a service you've done at another company that you're amazing at and you want to bring it to this company? Is it the company itself? You're adamant about getting into this company. That needs to translate in your interview. That passion sells, and that goes directly hand in hand with connection. So it's being what Zaina said. It's being authentic, and authenticity is directly linked to passion, right? Because you can't fake that. You either have it or you don't have it. So when you sit down with an interviewer, you might be the least qualified person, really. But think of the underdog. Think of that movie Rudy, right? He's like the smallest kid in the football team, right? But the kid's got heart and he's got passion and he's got drive, and everybody loves him, right? That's kind of what you have to think about in your interviews. It's really showing up and articulating really well, like, hey, I love this company, this culture. This is exactly, this is where I should be based on who I am, and it's really speaking to that passion, and that automatically translates into connection because, again, telling stories, talking about, really asking the questions I said to the interviewer, really getting them connected in the conversation. If you bring those two pieces into any interview, you're already a standout candidate. Because I will tell you, as a coach, I see 99% of interviews, people come in, they sit down, they forget it's a two-way street. They're simply talking heads, answering questions in a robotic format. There's nothing memorable. They walk out the door and nothing they said was everything they said everybody before them had said. There was nothing for me to remember or take away. So that's what you need to shoot for. Everybody needs to shoot for just thinking about connection and passion, because people make decisions based on what they feel. It's an emotional trigger.
Yep. And we could say that the myth is that people think you're not supposed to get personal.
Oh yeah, you're going to get personal.
Like that's what we found, that a lot of people don't get personal and they don't think that's appropriate, or they just don't think to do it. Right? They think to like stay on the track, but you want to read that situation and connect.
And you've got to you've got to get emotional. Like I said, you're going to be spending 40 plus hours a week in this environment. This is your life. yeah, you got to make it personal. It is personal, right? I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's a two-way street, because the worst thing that you can do, and people do it all the time, they fake it, they get into this company, into this job, and they hate it. And because they faked it. And then that's a lose-lose for everybody. The company's lost how much money because they've brought onboarded and paid for training and what have you. And this person is miserable, and that translates into their home life and everything else. I mean, it's a lose-lose situation. So you got to get personal in your interviews, and
Yeah.
don't be afraid to, because there's lots of jobs out there.
Yeah. Okay, so before we leave everybody, let's just give them a quick summary of a couple of your key tips from today.
Don't worry about the resume. Again, 90 seconds, really, that's all you're going to get. Take a really solid look at that job description, and use a lot of the same language in your cover letter and your resume, because there are computer searches, so make sure you do that. Also, please proofread. I will, if I see I mean, I've got to tell you, if it has misspellings or it's all, the formatting's all crazy, I can't. If you're using a Mac and you're sending it over, put it in a PDF. Save that formatting. It drives me bonkers. So just a little, it's off the beaten track, but keep that in mind. Connection is everything. Ask questions, during pregnant pauses, to get an idea of the interviewer, their style, what are their hot buttons, because then you know how to talk to them appropriately. Passion sells. So, and just don't make the assumption that you're walking into it and the person on the other side of the table has read your resume, knows anything about you. Really just take this opportunity to not just sell yourself, but to let them know how excited you are to even have that opportunity, and that you want to see if it's a good fit for you as well.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. That's a lot to think about. Thank you. That's good. That's great. Okay, so we are going to be coming to you regularly with these. Some of them will be here on Zoom and then posted on our Facebook page as well as YouTube, and others will be directly on Facebook Live. So we'll be sending you, a link to make sure you can get in and like the Facebook page so you get notifications about the next little broadcast that we do. And if you want to hear any more about the ACE Your Interview Fast Track course that we have for you, it can be completed in one afternoon. And that's
awesome.
One of my favorite things about it, is that results can come after one afternoon and change the entire way that you interview for the better. So if you'd like more information about that, all you have to do is hit reply on the email you got from us, and we can answer any questions you have or get you that link. And also, you get to try it for free.
Woo!
For a few days. Test drive that thing. See if you like it, and then choose to keep it forever. Anyway, so also, we'd love to know, what are your burning questions about this? What are the things that you've always wondered about when it comes to getting ready for your interview, actually completing the interview, the follow-up process?
Yes.
We would love to speak directly to the questions that you have and give you those answers on these lives, on these broadcasts. So, and then you'll have the videos to replay. So please let us know. Again, you can hit reply, or you can comment below this video if you're seeing it on socials. Okay.
Brilliant.
Okay. Until next time, we will see you soon. Thanks, Erin.
Bye.
Bye.